everyone. You thought that you were going to get rid of me so easily now that December was over, but I have succumbed. I have a hard time with challenges. If people challenge me to do things, I have a hard time not doing them. But Ethany, and I will put a link to her description, or to the direct video about these, her 31 days of tarot challenge for January. They're going to be quick videos, and I know nobody believes I can do quick videos, but these are going to be quick videos because she has a list of questions. I have all of them here. There are 31 questions, obviously, for January. I'm going to do 2 of them today because it actually started yesterday, but I was kind of like, oh, I just finished December. I don't know if I want to start another challenge, but I love Ethany, and so I'm going to jump on board with her little challenge. And I will put a link to both of her videos. The second one, and she might have gone back in the first one and put it too. She actually has links of other people who are doing it. Yeah, so that you can find other people who are doing this. If you want to do it, she has all the questions. I'll put a link to that too. In her website, she has a list of all the questions, and they're quick questions. Like, they really won't take very long to do, and so they're quick questions. And I'm doing 2 of them today because, and I know some people, like Katie's doing it, Katie Flowers, but she's going to do it once a week and answer, a quarter of the questions. Which I was kind of thinking about doing, but I'm just going to go for it. So the first 2 questions, well, the first question is what was your first introduction to tarot that made an impact? I'm not really sure about that, because truthfully, my first introduction to tarot, and I apologize for anybody, I know some new people have come on over, thanks to Kelly and being so sweet and making a wonderful shout out list. She graciously put my name on, which was so wonderful. Not to mention, I found, so I will put a link to that in the description box below too. Lots of description box links, because there was actually, she put a ton of different people, and there were definitely people on there. A lot of them I was already following, but there were quite a few that I didn't know about and wasn't following, and am now following. So that's a fantastic, great list. Some of them's tarot based, some of it's witchy based. Like, there's some different, various different ones. So I put a link to that in the description box too, if you're looking for fresh feeds for December, or January. But I kind of feel bad because the rest of you people are used to seeing me sometimes with no makeup on. Well, today's a no makeup day because I'm just doing a lot of work. So it's the weekend, which means for my regular job, and I have a big hair hanging. For my regular job, I work from home and I have a lot of work to do, which means kind of PJE clothes and no makeup today. But you will survive. Okay, so see, I can't do anything short. All right, let's get to this. So the first 2 questions, well, the first question, oh, I already asked it. See, I'm very, just center myself for a moment. My first introduction to tarot was very impactful, but it wasn't very positive. Because I grew up for a good chunk of my childhood a fundamental Baptist, very strict Baptist, and we used to have, and I say we, I didn't have a choice in the matter, so don't everybody go jumping on my bandwagon yelling at me. I didn't have a choice in it, but the church that I was going to would have burnings, which sounds very, Salem witch trials, but thankfully they were not burning people, but they would burn like people who had gotten, saved or whatever, and into the, it really does sound ridiculous when I even say it, because it's like, really, I'm not that old. I'm only 47. Like, the people are still doing things like this. It's kind of crazy. But they would have burning. So if people got saved, they would throw their, records, rock music records in the pile, Ouija boards, tarot cards, all of that kind of stuff would be thrown into the fire. And so that was probably my first experience, and it was quite impactful. I was kind of like, what in the world is this that is so dangerous that we're going to have to burn these things? I was a kid. I had no clue. But I was the kind of person who was quite intrigued by everything. And I was a huge reader. And so one of the things that the saving grace for, I think, my mental freedom was that I was a huge reader. And so I lived in the library. I read books from every section in the library. I was not and stuff that was well above my age bracket. And so I had, through that experience of reading everything I could get my hands on from every single topic that I could possibly pull from, that I believe truly, in all honesty, and again, I'm sorry, this isn't quick, but it's all right. It's me. You all know me. That kind of saved my mental freedom, because I really couldn't. I'd been exposed myself to so much information and so much perspective that it was very difficult for a lot of these stuff to stick in my brain as being dogma. The fear, very much so. That was the biggest struggle for me, to get away from the fear base of the religion. But in terms of seeing something like tarot cards or things like that and thinking, oh, those are evil, I'll never look at it, it kind of had the reverse effect, because it was like, oh, that's really interesting. I might, if there's something about those that are so powerful, like I might need to take a look at that. So it kind of had the reverse psychology effect on me. And again, I really do think that my exposure to so much through the library really did save my brain from locking down into that mindset. So thank you, public library system. Shout out to the public library system from Kelly. So that was like the first impact, and it was impactful because you just think, oh, wow, these must be something. That was my first introduction. But my first serious introduction, I've have done videos about my spiritual journey and things like that. But my first introduction was when I had stepped away and kind of pushed all religion in my early 20s. After my son was born, very ill, I had kind of pushed all the traditional religion away. Really didn't do much spiritual-wise for a little while. Was pretty much consumed, with taking care of a very sick child. But when I did start to approach spirituality again, I really did my typical, I'm a researcher by my DNA. So when, I'm told my son has like a rare disorder, I will research it to death. When I decide, I'm going to build a computer or something, I will research it to death. Like everything that I do, I will hyper research and then make decisions after I've kind of engulfed all kinds of information. That's just how I function. And so when I decided, okay, I'm not really a non-spiritual person, like I have to have some sort of spirituality. It is a part of who I am, but I can't go back to that. The old thing wasn't working. So then I went and, of course, researched everything and kind of really researched Wicca. We researched general paganism, Celtic paganism, Buddhism, which stuck quite a long time. Just about anything that you can think of, I've probably researched. And in all that research, I had touched on tarot. And I was quite interested in it and was very intrigued with it. But what actually held me back from tarot was the Christian influences. Because, if you look at this was, I don't know how long ago this would have been, over 20 years ago. The one, when this is before there was a huge web presence to research and things like that. So yes, I'm old. In my limited ability to research these things at the time, you mostly did see Rider-Waite-Smith decks, or I mostly saw Rider-Waite-Smith decks, a deck. And so that has very Christian undertones to it. It is based on the Christian in terms of there being a devil. Most other beliefs, like if you think about a pagan, pagan system, the devil wouldn't be there because that's not part of the paradigm, you know. So that's generally, if you get a pagan deck, that's been changed because the devil is a Christian construct, and so you wouldn't see that in a pagan sense of the word. And so, you know, the devil was there. Even the Hierophant was very popish. You know, there was very much a Christian influence to the tarot system that, for me at that time when I was trying to move forward, almost was like, well, this is interesting, because here I was, you know, thinking that this was so anathema to the Christian, but it has such strong Christian overtones. So it was kind of strange to me, and that's what actually kept me initially from pursuing it, even though I was quite interested in it. And then a few years probably after that, I was, and this is going to go into the second, the second question, which is, what is your first tarot deck? And so I was in Maine visiting a friend, and we walked into a shop. It wasn't a, you know, it wasn't a tarot shop, or it was just kind of a gifty shop, but it did have a little bit of a new age flair to it. And they had a section with some tarot cards, and they had the Llewellyn Tarot, which this has been heavily trimmed all the way, everything out except for the images. But they had the Llewellyn Tarot out where you could actually look at the cards. And when I looked through this deck, which is very pagan, it's based on Welsh, kind of Celtic mythology, the Christian influences were gone, because it's much more of a pagan, pre-Christian mythology. And so, you know, the devil is not there. I mean, the devil card is there, but it's not as the devil. And so even Judgment has more of the, I think it has more of the, you know, you get that feel, and that's not the mythic cycle that they use. But for me, when I see this kind, I think of this as being kind of in a tunnel in Avalon, and King Arthur is asleep and waiting to be awakened. You know, it's much more of that mythological cycle. It's very pre-Christian, and so those kinds of Christian overtones are not in this deck. And so as soon as I saw that, I snatched it up. It was the first exposure I had to a deck outside of the Rider-Waite-Smith, and sorry, I don't know why I have hairs everywhere, but, and so I bought it, and this was my primary deck for about 9 years or so before I got the Shadowscape deck. So that's the first two questions, like what was the impact for tarot, and then what was your first tarot deck, which was the Llewellyn Tarot. I still highly recommend this. I know I have a review of this, and they're all whopper jawed. It's on my list to, for some reason, a lot of my decks are all mixed up, and because I don't read physical reversals, so they shouldn't be like this, but they are. So I highly recommend this deck. It's beautiful. Again, there are borders on them. These suits, the sword suit is one of my favorite sword suit deck, period. It's probably why I love the sword suit so much, not to mention it's kind of my suit. But it's beautiful, and the colors are so rich. When you lay this out in a large spread, I mean, it is just a stunning deck. The artwork is absolutely gorgeous. Oh, look at that. So beautiful. I love this deck. Now that I have the Tin Centennial Rider-Waite-Smith that I can throw in my purse, because this has been in my purse, I probably will, you know, use this more. But like I said in my most used 2015, it's kind of a very personal deck to me now. However, because it is now almost playing card size, I actually love it for larger spreads. Like when I do full astrology spreads and things like that, I will use it for that sometimes, because the size makes it really nice, especially in my reading table now, to do a larger spread. And still, I love this one, the Wild Hunt, which is the Death card. So anyways, that's the answer to those two questions. So in the description box below, I'm going to link Ethany's blog post that lists all the questions, and as well as Ethany's video explaining, you know, what she's doing, and I think that might have the questions in it. I don't remember. And it also has other links to people doing this challenge. If you want to do the challenge, please let me know you're doing it. if you're doing it on your blog, because you could also do this on a blog thing as well. So however you're going to do it, because they're quick answers. This is a longer video because I'm a rambly person and I'm answering 2 questions. So you thought you were going to get away from seeing me today on January 2nd, but no. I hope you all have a fantastic day.